Okay, let's begin. Thanks everyone for joining and welcome to the webinar this morning. Really pleased to be able to speak to you this morning about how we can help increase efficiencies by using the right tool for the job when managing legal transactions. Feel free to pop any questions in the chat and we'll get those answered. We'll also leave some time at the end if there's anything outstanding in terms of points of discussion. So without further ado, let's begin. Hope everyone's managed to grab a tea or a coffee this morning. So what we'd like to speak to you about is how you can uncover efficiencies during managing legal transactions by using the right tool for the job. Really with Legatics, next slide please, is about using the right tool for the job. Now, if we think about this in other areas of life, would you ever use a saw to cut a loaf of bread? I mean, you could, but really it's not the right tool for the job. Instead, you want to use the right tool for the job. So with Legatics, for legal transactions, we want to make sure that, again, you're using the right tool for the job. Now, for some firms, for some organizations, you could use a document management system to manage a legal transaction. But really, again, it's not the right tool for the job. Why? Because document management systems are like isolated islands. They don't allow visitors, and the only way of collaborating is via email. Now, this makes basic tasks like finding the latest version of a document very difficult. The task of managing legal transactions in this case is left to a Word document, like the one that you can see on the right here. However, again, this is another example of the wrong tool for the wrong job. At Legatics, our solution is to allow lawyers to create digital lists like documents lists, steps plans, or checklists that act as a central store of truth so that everyone can upload documents, exchange versions of documents, see who needs to sign, what are the comments, and what are the status of these documents. With Legatics, it is actually much more than just a digital list. You can also conduct all of these types of legal processes on the next slide, please, such as exchanging documents using a digital checklist, getting documents signed, but also creating a closing set with one click of a button. We then also have the ability to use dashboards to monitor the status of different parts of your transaction. You can use various different matter templates in order to be able to set things up really quickly and easily. We also have a legal text importer as well to allow you to import large volumes of legal text in one go. In addition to this, you could also use Legatics to pull Word downloads, to create bundles. You can set permissions, and you also have an audit trail as well. DocuSign and iManage integrations are also included, so you can use your own firm's instance of either of these to get documents signed and also to use your document management system. On the next slide, Legatics can also be used for many different types of transactions. So not just generally things like checklists, documents lists, and issues lists, but also many types of transactions within banking and finance, within corporate, within real estate, regulatory, and many more. We also actually have in-house legal teams using us for things like due diligence, company acquisitions, and project management. And next, we'd like to show you how you could actually use Legatics for some of these types of processes. And I'll hand over to Marcus to show you how.
Hi, first of all, thank you very much for joining. My name's Marcus Uden. I am a business development manager here at Legatics, and it's fantastic to speak with you all this morning. I'm just going to be running you through kind of like a little demo matter, just as a taster to kind of show you kind of some of the key highlights of what Legatics can do, how it can help, and all that good stuff. So first of all, what we're just going to be seeing here is just in a banking and finance kind of pre-populated transaction that I've created. And I think the first thing that you can see in terms of how Legatics can help is this overview screen. So this overview screen is something that we get a lot of plaudits from our clients, because it allows them to see the transaction from a bird's eye view and get to have a great overview of that transaction. So you can see here as well that we have these two multiple lists. Competitors and others I don't have the ability to do this, so it's fantastic that we can actually see all these multiple lists in one area, so you can actually track everything that's going on in one place. One of our colleagues has recently moved over and was using Legatics on the transaction of an 8-tranche deal, where he had 8 tranches of debt during a banking and finance transaction, and he said it was so much easier using something like Legatics because he could track every part of the transaction on its way with all its with each list being in the same area for him to see at any given time. Also makes it easy for clients or partners to come in and see exactly what's going on in the transaction, and it's incredibly useful. So if we just jump into one of these lists, I can kind of show you in the way in which we're trying to change the way that legal transactions are run. So if we just jump into this conditions precedent to initial utilization here, you can see that we try to keep this looking as similar to Word as we possibly can. So it feels intuitive and easy to use for lawyers, because in the past they would have to manage this checklist using it on Word. But by doing this in an online environment, as Rob alluded to during the presentation, it means that we can now work in a holistic online environment where all documents are traded and statuses are updated in one singular place, rather than having static avenues of communication and of negotiation. We can actually now do this all in one place. So you can see here that we have a few documents that we've been uploaded. And the great thing about the platform is that it works and in a live way. So if you're working on a document, on a transaction, it updates automatically, rather than, of course, the old static way of working on a Word checklist, where you'd have to update the checklist as and when you went. So as you can see, we have a variety of different statuses here as well, which allows you to basically track everything that's going on in the transaction. So say we were the lawyer and we came in and we wanted to review this document. What we would do is download the document, run a compare, re-upload, and then basically once we've uploaded the document, the counterparty would then get an email notification telling them that there's something for them to complete on their work. So what we're trying to do is basically stay away from that email ping pong, that email back and forth, and allow you to do this all in one place. The cool thing about Legatics as well is that we have a variety of different access restrictions. So we have the ability to basically restrict access in a variety of different ways. So we can do that by a list basis. So as an example, we have multiple lists. So in banking and finance, you might have a conditions precedent to initial utilization. Then you might have a conditions precedent to subsequent utilization. In an M&A use case, you may have a list for different region where the transaction's happening. For reorganization, as an example, there may be different entities in different locations where you want different lists for. And we actually might want to limit access to those lists during the transaction. So some parties don't have access to those lists and others do. So to do that, we have in the top right-hand corner, we have the ability to limit access to certain lists. So you can see here that at the moment, everyone has access to those lists. However, if we want, and we can also do this by a line item basis, and a document on document basis. So if we wanted to limit this on a line item basis, you can see we have this padlock down here. All we would do is click on this and you can see that it's accessible and we can restrict access to certain parties if we would like. Moreover, we can do this on a document by document basis. So if we wanted to add a document here, we could then click on the accessible by button, deselect all. You can see that we only have the firm name selected. The firm name in this instance would be the firm who's running the transaction. We can choose file, we're going to add some article association, some color, and we're going to upload. You can see that once I upload the document, first of all, the status changed. You can see now that it's waiting review by firm name, and then we get an automatic email notification. And you can see that we've now uploaded that. So it makes it really easy for basically lawyers to see exactly which documents have been limited access to. And then if we wanted to see kind of what versions have been uploaded to the platform, we could click on the review history here, which means that we can actually see every document that's been uploaded. And a lot of my colleagues here at Ex-Lawyers and have actually used Legatics on transactions in the past. And they say that this is really useful for them because they can actually have a central store of truth of exactly which document is the latest version. They say it's very tough on DMS and on iManage to basically find that out. Whereas Legatics, you can actually see exactly which document, who has access to this document, the upload time, and who is it uploaded by. Moreover, we can also restrict access via comments. So let's say, is this the correct version as an example? And then we can restrict access to just us again. Once I click on save, you can see that this padlock has been applied correctly, which means that those access restrictions have also been applied correctly. If I then wanted to double check that, basically to ensure that I've restricted access to the correct person, we could actually use the view as button. So we could actually view as the matter administrator, we could view as the person that we're trying to restrict access to ensure that those access restrictions have been applied properly. Of course, in the old way, when you're exchanging emails, going back and forth, deleting people from CC, etc., it can be a lot more complicated. So this makes it a lot more simplistic for you to double check that the people that you're trying to restrict access to have actually been restricted access. So if I click on view as here and go on to borrower as an example, you can see that that document I just uploaded is no longer available. And the comment that I just added is also no longer available for them to see, which shows that those restricted access restrictions have been applied correctly. So if we just, I've kind of shown you a little bit about how we would negotiate on the platform. There's a variety of different ways as well in which we can basically create checklists that I'll, if you would like to kind of see at a later date, we can speak to you about on a demonstration. But we can also create checklists from scratch really easily on the platform as well to get them into the platform so that you can begin this online discussion and this negotiation. So we have the import tool, which allows you to import from another list, which can be really, really useful. So if you wanted to basically start you just worked on a transaction that was very similar, we could basically import from another list and use that list to begin our transaction right away or begin our matter straight away. We can also use the import from an Excel spreadsheet. So if you have the checklist on a spreadsheet that you want to get into the platform, you can upload it directly. But one of the best things that we have is this import tool. So we have a pattern recognition, language agnostic import tool, which allows you to basically copy and paste straight out the back of an agreement or a schedule. So let's say the CPs out the back of a loan agreement and straight into the platform, which saves a lot more time in creating those checklists than the past. So there's a variety of ways in which you can get those checklists into the platform as well before you begin that negotiation between parties, which I've just shown you. So now that we've kind of looked at something a little bit in the banking and finance context, I'm just going to jump over to another deal which kind of goes into like how Legatics can be used in more of a M&A context. So as you can see here, I'm just going to jump into Project Mars. And you can see once again this overview screen providing really useful insights straight from the beginning, but in another context, in another deal. So you can see that we have a signing checklist, but we also have this completion obligations checklist as well. A cool thing about Legatics, and I'm sure something that you've just noticed, is that we have this take action button. So this take action button can be really, really powerful. And it's something that when I've spoken to clients about Legatics who have used it on counterparties and then decided to proceed with us, they've said that the take action button can be really, really useful because it actually gives you a notification of what you have to do next and what you have to complete next. And this will take you to a filtered version of your list. So you know exactly what you need to do and who needs to do it, which makes it a lot more simplistic to kind of know what you need to do next rather than having to kind of look through it on a checklist, double check that this checklist is the live checklist and ensure that what the work that we're doing, we can do it as fast as possible rather than using static lists of the past. So to show you kind of what I'm going to be showing you now, basically how the signing process would happen in Legatics. So you see here we have a variety of different M&A documents here. And of course, we've uploaded them in, they've been discussed, we have some in agreed form. And if we wanted to get into agreed form, we basically would go through that negotiation process and then change the status to agreed form. And once we have it in agreed form, it's probably time for it to be executed. So again, we would change it to be executed. So you can see here that we have a DocuSign integration. I'm just going to run through it briefly about how that DocuSign integration works and what it looks like. So I'm just going to have to sign in quickly. So this basically you get taken to your own version of DocuSign as well, which is really, really powerful. So it means that you everything that you have access to in your own version of DocuSign, you will have in Legatics as well. 1 second, let me just get my password right. So once we've all logged in here, we have the ability to use Legatics' DocuSign integration. So we have a variety of ways in which we can sign documents. I know that during an M&A process, as an example, normally all documents get sent at the same time. So there is the ability to do that on Legatics. So if we wanted to send all the documents at the same time, if you could just imagine that we have, 10 documents here, and they've all basically been put in agreed form. All we would do is click on this button, shift down, select them all, and then we can go on to DocuSign here, create envelopes, and you can see that we actually can create one envelope for all documents, one envelope for each document, and then we can push them all into DocuSign so that we can send them out to the responsible parties all at the same time, which can be really, really powerful. We also have advanced qualified in signing with Legatics, which makes it with our version of DocuSign, which means you can use it for every signing in Europe and the UK, which is also really powerful. So just to show you kind of what that integration looks like, I'm just going to be using one singular document. So if I go on to the DocuSign integration down here and create new envelope, I'm just going to call the envelope name TSA. I'm going to import all users from the parties column, and I'm just going to click on confirm. What's happening now is that we're going to be taken to our version of DocuSign. So as I alluded to before, we'd be taken to the company's version of DocuSign rather than our integrated version of DocuSign, which means that you'll have access to everything that you can do on your own version, rather than not being limited to what we have integrated within Legatics, which we know a lot of clients really, really like, because it means that they can do everything that they pay for on their own version of DocuSign. So would that be sign with ID or anything like that? So we're just going to go on here, please sign, and then click on next. So just as you normally would, we're just going to scroll through and basically, and then tag the documents as you usually would. Just go on to signature and name, and then we're going to go above and do the same thing, signature and name. And then what we're going to do is click send. Once we've clicked send and it's finished sending, what will happen is that once we go back into Legatics, we can click on this little refresh button here, and we can now see that the document has been sent. If we took my original example of where I selected all of the documents, we can actually go onto DocuSign here and click on refresh all statuses, which means that you don't have to go through every single one and click on refresh. You can actually refresh all the statuses at one time, so you can see the status of every single status at one singular time. We're then going to go into DocuSign, into my email, and you can see that we've now received that from DocuSign. I'm going to click on review document, just as you normally would. And you can see how simple and fast it can be to sign documents on Legatics. We can see that we're going to please electronic and signature disclosure, continue, click on start, takes us down to the bottom, click on sign, adopt and sign. Okay, cool, we're finished with that one. And thanks. And then we're going to go down to the next one, do the same thing. And you can see just how simplistic it is to basically sign these documents on Legatics. Very easy, a lot more simplistic than the old-fashioned way. And then we can go on to no thanks. Once we go back to the checklist, you can see that I can click on download, so refresh, apologies, and you can see that this has now been completed. Once I then click this download button and click on confirm, basically what's happening now is Legatics is speaking with DocuSign, and we're getting that completed version back into the platform. And you can now see that it gets automatically updated with signed. We can then go on to be executed and go on to executed. So we can now see that we have these two executed documents here, which will be reflected in the overview screen again. So once we jump back across, we can see that we now have two documents executed. Once we've completed the signing piece on Legatics, we can also create transaction Bibles off the back of the signing signing all the documents on Legatics, which is fantastic, really easy. So I think the great thing about Legatics to think about is that in any use case where you have a checklist that needs to be created, documents that need to be negotiated, documents that then need to be signed, and then documents transaction Bible that needs to be created, Legatics can be really, really powerful in any use case at any time. And I'll hand back to Rob.
Thanks, Marcus. That was great. Really, really helpful to demonstrate and show the audience how some of these processes work. So just to kind of follow on from Marcus's last point there, what we've done is we've collated statistics from many of our customers to put together some blended analysis to find exactly how much time and efficiencies can be achieved, or time savings and efficiencies can be achieved by using Legatics, using the right tool for the job during these transactions. So as you'll see on the screen here, when you are producing and managing lists, this can often be, we've heard in the legacy process, an incredibly time-consuming part of the process. You have to get a checklist up and running, you have to manage it, you have to email it backwards and forwards, you have to jump on all-party phone calls that can last for hours and hours and hours, just to check the status of all of these documents. Instead, with Legatics, it replaces the need to do things like jump on all-party phone calls for hours, email documents backwards and forwards, email lists backwards and forwards, and instead you can save all of that time and move on to higher value legal work, or move on to more transactions much more quickly. So you can reduce the time spent producing and managing these lists, we find, up to 75% by using the right tool for the job, i.e. Legatics. Similarly, when you're getting documents signed, and as we've seen there with DocuSign, it's incredibly quick and efficient, but actually also with our wet ink signing tool as well. If you are in a jurisdiction that requires signatures by hand, the wet ink signing tool, we'd be more than happy to show you on a demonstration how that works. But together, these tools really help to also reduce the amount of time spent signing documents, and we found by 80% in terms of some blended analysis for that. So there's just a question there in terms of integration with MS Teams, SharePoint, and OneDrive. Yeah, so in terms of integrations with things like this, you can also push and pull documents from your not just your document management system, but also your local drive as well. So you'd be able to use all of these. We don't actually have a direct integration in terms of in the way that you've seen DocuSign there, but certainly we have lots of customers that use all of those options to push and pull documents in. We'd be happy to show you how that works on a demonstration as well. So thirdly, on the slide here, we then also have a reduction in the time spent creating closing sets. Now, this really is one of the strongest features of Legatics. It is something that used to take lawyers who use Legatics now days, if not weeks, sometimes to produce incredibly complex closing sets and binders for large deals. With Legatics, you can really reduce the amount of time spent doing this by clicking one button and creating your closing set really quickly and easily. So we've seen firms and companies reduce the time spent producing closing sets by 95% for some transactions. So on the next slide, we would like to obviously show you in a bit more detail how Legatics can benefit all of the different teams across your firm or across your business. But there are some general benefits that you find for all of these types of deals that Legatics can be run for, which are things like greater deal transparency. So ultimately, as we're discussing there, by using the right tool for the job, when you are exchanging documents, using that complex web in document management system or via email, things aren't very transparent, things get muddied, things get lost. Legatics really helps all parties to have a huge amount of deal transparency by giving them a central store of truth and one platform that all parties can log on to and check the status of documents and check what needs to be done next. But that's also the case internally within your firm. So if you're working for a law firm and you need to provide updates to partners or to senior stakeholders about the status of the deal, things like the overview screen that you can see on the screen here really help to provide all parties internally and externally with transparency around the status of various documents, various parts of deals, and various processes that are going on. A few emails and calls is also something we've ultimately discussed, but it is incredibly important. We had one firm recently tell us that they were able to reduce the amount of emails by over 200 on one transaction alone. So I don't know about you, but a lot of my day is emailing backwards and forth, and I'm not a transactional lawyer, so I can only imagine how transactional lawyers have to, how much email they have to go through, and certainly all party phone calls we've touched upon as well. A reduced risk of error is really, really important to mention as well. When you have disparate locations of storing documents, different systems, things can get lost, things can get confused, stuff can get subject to issues around information security and so on. But with Legatics, you have a central store of truth that really helps to reduce any risk of error or any risk of things being lost during the process. And overall, the last point is really important to mention as well. And those of you on the webinar today may have attended our last webinar around burnouts, but it's a really important issue within the profession at the moment as well. when we talk about transaction experience, we're not just talking about the experience of your clients. You know, it's ultimately of paramount importance to make sure that your clients, who are the ones paying the bills, have a great experience during these transactions. But now, more and more, we're finding that it's important to provide a transaction experience for lawyers and junior lawyers and associates and people who are actually in the weeds of these deals as well, that they also have a transaction experience. That doesn't mean that they are burning out, losing sleep, staying up all hours of the day and night to actually get these deals done. And instead, if you give them the right tools for the job and you deploy Legatics on a deal, you can reduce the amount of stress and time that lawyers have to spend actually running these transactions. So really, that's what the message of this webinar today is, that if you use the right tool for the job, you have a transaction experience that is greatly enhanced, not only for your clients, for your junior lawyers, for your partners, and for all stakeholders. Next slide, please. So in terms of the firms that actually use us, sorry, I think there was one more back, Marcus, one slide. Oh no, we missed that one. Okay, that's fine. So yeah, in terms of some examples of firms who actually use us. So obviously Legatics is used across a range of transactions for different size firms. We have firms from, you know, small boutiques that use us for smaller deals with just 20 CPs and a few parties. We then also have the likes of Allen & Overy, Sherman & Sterling and Watson Farley Williams. Some of the deals that we've been used on include a $450 million financing of 6 wind power projects in Pakistan. This involved 1,000 CPs and 20 parties. And overall, it was reported in this deal with Sherman & Sterling that the clients and all parties were really, really pleased with the ability to do things like prompt parties actions, check the status of documents, and really the software was perfect for this type of transaction. And as I said, we've also been used on smaller deals with 20 CPs and 2 parties. You know, it has application across all types of practice areas and all types of deals. So yeah, you can also see on this screen testimonial from some of the A&O team in Singapore. We've not been able to close the transaction in such a tight time frame without Legatics. It was instrumental in ensuring that all parties' timing requirements were met. And you find that there's multiple instances of these testimonials of how Legatics can really, really help increase efficiencies and provide a great experience across these types of deals. Okay, so in terms of where Legatics has been used, we've recently hit a fantastic milestone of over $1 trillion worth of transactions that Legatics has been used on, and this was fantastic to see that we've been used on not just you know, high value transactions, but also a large volume of high value transactions over the last few years. I mean, you know, we're really starting to ramp up. You can see here on the right that we've had 2.5 times the amount of matters opened over the last calendar year as in the previous calendar year. So it really is a great time to jump on board with Legatics. As you can see, usage is spiking. We're seeing you know, more and more transactions being run all the time. We've actually doubled our revenue last year, but also doubled the number of customers that are coming on board, and also projected to do so over the next financial year as well. Recently gone through an investment round, and we have put this to development of the product. And it's gone, you know, out to a number of our clients already, and we already have customers in over 50 countries. So, as I said, fantastic time to jump on board and explore how Legatics can help. And that leads me on to the next slide, which is if you'd like to learn more, please do get in touch. Email us, marketing@legatics.com. The marketing team will get back to you and book you in for a demonstration. Alternatively, you can visit our website, www.legatics.com. Please do drop a line over to us with feedback on the webinar, but also, you know, do feel free to follow us on LinkedIn, connect with both Marcus and myself. I realized I did forget to introduce myself at the start of the call, also on the business development team as well, but really, really pleased to have been able to show you guys how to uncover efficiencies by using the right tool for the job. And now we'll answer any questions if they're in the chat box. Please feel free to drop them in. Okay, we've got a question there. How long does it take to get started to implement? Marcus, did you want to take that one? How long do we normally take to get customers up and running on Legatics?
Yeah, I think Legatics is really fast for lawyers to get up and running when they come on board, because it's really I think it's very intuitive and easy for lawyers to pick up straight away. With some clients, they've used it before, so I think we provide a lot of information and rollout help when you first start using Legatics as well. So all of those things in tandem with one another, I think, makes it really simple for people to get up and running straight away with the platform and using it on those transactions as soon as they get access.
Yeah, and just to provide some more information around that, we can normally get access for firms up and running in about 2 to 3 working days, depending on requirements around integrations and so on. Let's see if we've got any more questions here.
So I've got one here about customize, anything that's customizable. So the great thing about Legatics as well is that customization is really easy to use. You see all those statuses that I had on the right hand side, they can actually be customized to any way of your workflow and in any language. So it doesn't always have to be in English. A lot of the checklist itself could be in any language. The statuses themselves can be in any language. So a lot of Legatics can be really customized to the way that your firm works. And the language of the host nation and how and in what language that you're working in most of the time as well. So that's also something to note, that a lot of Legatics can be really customized to your own workflows, your own language, your own legal language, which can be really useful going forward as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I guess just to sort of tail on to that point as well, the customization options don't stop there. It's also available for use by in-house legal teams. We've already got a number of in-house lawyers already using Legatics on live transactions, and these tend to be wide-ranging and include things like due diligence, company acquisitions, and the customization features that are available within the platform really mean that you can set this up for not only types of legal transactions as a law firm, but also different types of legal project management processes as an in-house legal team as well. So if there are any participants on the call that would like to see that, please feel free to email us any questions or to go to the website and book a demo. And yeah, finally, thanks everyone for your time today. It's been a real pleasure, and we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar very shortly.
Yeah, thank you all. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great rest of your morning/afternoon, wherever you're in the world.